Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. And today we'll be discussing the theory related to the chapter biological classification. Okay. So in this session we'll be discussing the theory based on the NEET exam. So I will tell you which topics are very important, what is the weightage of this chapter, what are the concepts on which questions can come. So we'll discuss this. So this session or this lecture is focusing on the NEET exam. So before starting the lecture, I just want to give you one information that the images, text and other materials used in our presentations are for education purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and owners. If you are the owner and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathee@itk.ac.in and we shall remove the content immediately. Please note that parts of the content may have been generated using generative AI, which is experimental. So what we will study in this lecture? What are the objective of this lecture today? So we will understand and we will study the bacterial fundamentals, or concepts related to the kingdom Monera, which includes the bacteria, focusing on the NEET exam, and we'll talk about the cell structure, classification. So kingdom Monera is further divided into archaebacteria and eubacteria. We'll talk about these two groups. We'll talk about the reproduction methods, and we'll talk about the economic importance of the bacteria. Then we'll focus on the kingdom Protista also. So, we will understand the fundamental concepts of the kingdom Protista, focusing on the NEET exam, and we'll talk about the diverse cell structures. So Protista includes unicellular eukaryotes. We'll talk about these organisms. We'll talk about their classification, reproduction methods, and their ecological and economic significance. So we'll talk about kingdom Monera and kingdom Protista in this lecture, focusing on the NEET exam. First, we'll talk about the trend analysis. In this, we'll talk about the weightage of the chapter and the topics which are very important for the NEET exam. Then I will give you an introduction of this chapter. We'll talk about kingdom Monera, archaebacteria, eubacteria. Then we'll start with the kingdom Protista, and under kingdom Protista, we'll talk about chrysophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, and slime molds. Then we'll talk about the protozoans, which are also included under the kingdom Protista. Clear? So this is very important here. You can see the weightage of this chapter. This is 1.6%. And you get 1 to 2 questions every year from this chapter. So you can see this chapter is very important. Even if you are getting 1 and 2 questions, still you should study all the topics from this chapter. Number of questions from 2018 to 2024. So if we select this time frame, 2018 to 2024, 11 questions have come from this chapter. Now here this table shows you the topic, the concept used, the number of questions, and the difficulty level of the questions, and the year is also given. In 2018, you can see the questions have come from the kingdom Protista. Then questions are coming from kingdom Monera, kingdom fungi. In 2023, there was no question from this chapter. So usually the questions are coming from kingdom fungi, Monera, and the kingdom Protista. Then questions are coming from the topic virus, viroids, lichens. These are also very important, virus, viroids, and lichens. In 2020, questions came from viroids. What is the cellular composition of viroids? Then questions are coming from the plasmogamy. What is plasmogamy? Fusion of the protoplasm. And questions are coming from characteristic of virus, viroids, prions. And then different types of fungi. Questions have come from dinoflagellates and protozoans, which come under kingdom Protista. So maximum number of questions, even 4 questions have come from this chapter. So you can see. So every year it varies. 4 questions have also come from this chapter. Minimum number of question, 1 question. Maximum number of question, 4 question. Usually the questions, they are of average type. Sometimes the questions are quite easy also. So when they have given you 4 questions, these 4 questions were easy. So if they have increased the number of questions, then these questions were very easy. Okay, sometimes the questions, some of the question can be quite difficult also, some can be easy also. Okay. So let's start with the introduction now. So we'll be focusing on the topics here which are very important for the NEET exam. Clear? So let's start with the Linnaeus system of classification. So Linnaeus gave two kingdom system of classification. What were these two kingdoms? Kingdom Plantae and Kingdom Animalia. Okay. So these were the two groups or two kingdoms which are formed by Linnaeus. This is two kingdom classification. First of all, this is very important. That's why we are starting with the two kingdom classification. Before this, there was a classification given by Aristotle. Okay. And before Aristotle, the classification system didn't have any scientific basis. They were just based on the use of the animals. Okay. But there were limitations to the two kingdom system of classification. Okay. So this system did not distinguish between the eukaryotes and the prokaryotes, first of all. So you should know the limitations of the two kingdom classification. So eukaryotic and prokaryotic organisms were placed in a same group. Prokaryotes, these are bacteria. And rest of the organisms, they are eukaryote. So they were placed in the same group. Clear? Now unicellular, multicellular organisms were placed in the same group. Again, bacteria, they are unicellular. They were placed with multicellular organisms. Okay. Like animals are multicellular. Bacteria, they are unicellular. Plants, they are multicellular. Okay. And there was no distinction between photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic organisms. So like algae and plants, they are photosynthetic. They can photosynthesize, they can prepare their own food. And fungi, they are saprophytic. They obtain nutrients from dead and decaying organic matter. So there was no separation between eukaryotes and prokaryotes, unicellular, multicellular, and photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic, means autotrophic and heterotrophic organisms. So fungi, they are heterotrophic. Plants and algae, they are autotrophic. So there was no distinction. All the organisms were placed in a single group. Clear? So there was a group in plant group, in kingdom Plantae. The fungi was also included. Bacteria was also included. Moss was also included. Then ferns, gymnosperm, angiosperm, everything was included. All the organisms were included in the kingdom Plantae. Okay, which is not right. Okay, and what basis they were placed in a single group? So they were placed in this group based on the presence of the cell wall. So this was the criteria of placing these organisms into one group. Presence of cell wall. Bacteria also have a cell wall. Fungi also have a cell wall. Plants, they also have a cell wall. But you know that the composition of the cell wall is different. So earlier these all were placed in a single group based on the presence of the cell wall. Okay. So bacteria, they are prokaryotes. They were placed with eukaryotes. Again, unicellular organism were placed with multicellular organism. Fungi, which is heterotrophic organism, they were placed with the algae, which are photosynthetic. Now, so this classification was very simple. Clear? But large number of organisms did not fall into either category. So there were large number of organisms which was not falling into these categories, plant and the animals. So for them, separate groups should be made. Okay, they were not like kingdom fungi. It has been made. Bacteria, they are placed in kingdom Monera now. Fungi, it have unique characteristics. Cell wall is made up of chitin. They are saprophytes, so they are placed in another group. Kingdom Monera includes all the prokaryotes, unicellular prokaryotes, which are bacteria. So all the organisms were not, they were not falling into these two categories. So two kingdom classification used for a long time was found inadequate. Now the classification system for the living organisms have undergone several changes. Why it has gone several changes? Because now we have better techniques, we have better microscope. Okay, now we can reach the remote areas where we are finding new organisms. Now we are studying the organism at molecular and genetic level. We are also taking into consideration evolutionary relationship. So now we are able to better understand the living organism. Okay, we can understand the evolutionary relationship also. So that's why the classification system, they are changing. Now the plant and animal kingdoms, they have been always constant under all the systems. So there are many system, 2 kingdom classification, then you have 5 kingdom classification, you have 6 kingdom classification. So in all of these kingdoms, or in all of these classification system, plants and animals kingdom, these 2 kingdoms, these have been constant, and other kingdoms have been added, like kingdom Monera, fungi, okay, kingdom Protista. Here. Now, which organism should be placed in which group? This depends on the scientist or the perspective of the scientist. Okay, so different scientists, they, you can say, use different criteria to group these organisms, and their perspective, their thinking is also different. So based on the scientist. Clear? So this is also one of the reason for the change in the classification system. How the scientist is looking at a particular organism, or which criteria it is following for placing the organism into different groups. Whitaker in 1969, he proposed 5 kingdom classification. What were these kingdoms? Monera, Protista, fungi, plantae, and animalia. So here you can see this, from this line of the NCERT book, the question has come. The main criteria of classification used by Whitaker was cell structure or body organization, mode of nutrition, mode of reproduction, and phylogenetic relationship. So you should remember, this question can come from this. Question has already come from this line. What was the criteria for the 5 kingdom classification? Okay, cell structure. Does the cell contain cell wall, or does it not contain the cell wall? Is the cell prokaryotic or eukaryotic? Then body organization, whether cell is unicellular or multicellular, whether the organism is multicellular, unicellular, whether they have tissues, whether they have organ or organ systems. Then they are autotrophic or heterotrophic. Then they reproduce sexually or asexually, or by both. And what is the evolutionary relationship? Then came the 3-domain system. So this is also very important, 3-domain system. What were the 3 domains? Archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. So kingdom Monera was further divided into 2 domains. In total, we have 3 domains: archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. Archaea and bacteria, they consist of the prokaryotic organism, and eukarya contains all the eukaryotic organism. So this is also known as 6 kingdom classification, because Monera has been divided into 2 groups further. Okay, so 3-domain classification you can call it, or 6 kingdom classification. Now you can see under the group plants, bacteria, which are prokaryotes, blue-green algae, which are again unicellular prokaryotes, blue-green algae, cyanobacteria, fungi, which are multicellular, mosses, ferns, gymnosperms, angiosperms, these are all included under the plants. Fungi, they are heterotrophs. Okay, plants and algae, they are phototrophs. Bacteria are prokaryotic. Then fungi and plants, they are all eukaryotes. Okay, Then there were no distinction between the autotrophic and the heterotrophic organism. Fungi are heterotrophic, plants they are autotrophic. So all of these organisms were placed under the plants based on what? Based on the presence of the cell wall. But you know that all these organisms are very different from each other. So they differ in lot of characteristic, like mode of nutrition, mode of reproduction, their cell structure, okay, their body organization. Okay, let's talk about the five kingdoms now. Characteristic of the five kingdom. So again, you should know about this. Let's talk about Monera and Protista first. So Monera, they are prokaryote. Protista, they are eukaryote. So prokaryotic cells, they don't have a true nucleus. In terms of nucleus, they have a nucleoid. Okay, they don't have membrane-bound cell organelles. Eukaryotic cell, they have true nucleus. They have membrane-bound cell organelles. Then cell wall, in Monera, it is non-cellulosic. Basically, Monera consists of bacteria. And the true bacteria, in true bacteria, cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan. Remember this. You can write. In bacteria, cell wall consists of peptidoglycan. Okay, we are talking about the true bacteria. Then in Protista, it is present in some, nuclear membrane absent because they are prokaryotic cell. In Protista, it is present. Body organization, these are cellular. Monera, they are unicellular, means single cell, that's why cellular. Protists, they are also unicellular, that's why cellular. Mode of nutrition can be autotrophic or heterotrophic. In Protista, they are autotrophic again or heterotrophic. Within autotrophs, you have two categories, chemosynthetic and photosynthetic. And within heterotroph, you have two categories, saprophytic and parasitic. Okay, Protista, they are only photosynthetic. While these bacteria, they can be chemosynthetic or photosynthetic. Okay, chemosynthetic means they oxidize the inorganic substances like nitrates and nitrites and ammonia, and they generate energy using these inorganic substrate by oxidation of this inorganic substrate. Photosynthetic means they can photosynthesize. They have the pigments such as chlorophyll, which are quite similar to the chlorophyll present in the plants. So they have pigments which are very similar to the pigments present in the plants. Now let's talk about the character of fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. All are eukaryotic. Cell wall is made up of chitin. It is composed of chitin in case of fungi. In plant, the cell wall consists of the cellulose. In animal, cell wall is absent. Nuclear membrane is present because they are eukaryotic cell. Let's talk about body organization. Fungi, they are usually multicellular and they have loose tissues. Plants, they have the tissue level of organization and they have organs also like shoots and roots. These are all organs. Then animals, they have tissues also. They have organ systems also like digestive system and excretory system. Let's talk about mode of nutrition. Fungi, they are heterotrophic. Okay. Plants, they are autotrophic. And animals, they are heterotrophic. Mode of nutrition is holozoic, means they ingest the food, then they digest the food, and then they absorb the nutrients from the digested food. So here you can see, clear? It brought together the prokaryotic bacteria and the blue-green algae with other groups which were eukaryotic. So bacteria is prokaryote, blue-green algae, this is a prokaryote. These were placed with the eukaryotic organisms, which is not correct. Okay. Now it also grouped unicellular organisms and the multicellular organisms together. So Chlamydomonas and Spirogyra, they were placed under algae, but Chlamydomonas, this is unicellular, Spirogyra, this is multicellular. So they were also placed under the same group. Clear? But this is not correct. Although they are placed in the algae here. Clear? Unicellular organisms were placed with the multicellular organisms. Now this classification did not differentiate between heterotrophic group fungi and the autotrophic green plants. So we are talking about the limitations of the two kingdom system of classification. Okay, we talked earlier there was no distinction between unicellular, multicellular, prokaryotic, eukaryotic and autotrophic and heterotrophic. So again fungi were placed with the green plants. Fungi, they are heterotrophic plants, they are autotrophic. Fungi, they have different cell wall composition, they have chitin. So that's why the Fungi were later placed in separate kingdom known as kingdom fungi, and bacteria were placed in kingdom Monera. Okay, all prokaryotic organisms were placed under kingdom Monera, and unicellular eukaryotic, remember, unicellular eukaryotic organism were placed in kingdom Protista. Again, you should remember, this is very important. They can ask question from this line. Now let's talk about kingdom Protista. Okay, just a little bit about kingdom Protista here. In kingdom Protista, Chlamydomonas and Chlorella, which are unicellular eukaryotes, which were earlier placed in algae within the plants. Okay, they are placed with Paramecium and amoeba. So Paramecium and amoeba, they are also placed under kingdom Protista, and Chlamydomonas and Chlorella, they are also placed under kingdom Protista. But Chlamydomonas and Chlorella, these are also studied under the algae. Clear? So you can see Chlamydomonas and Chlorella, they are placed along with Paramecium and amoeba in the kingdom Protista now. Okay. Okay, it has put together organisms which in earlier classification were placed in the different kingdoms. So now the Protista includes Chlamydomonas and Chlorella as well as Paramecium and amoeba also. This had remained because the criteria for classification changed. Okay, so you can see here Chlamydomonas and Chlorella, these were placed in algae earlier. Now they are placed in Protista in the 5 kingdom of classification, because the criteria for the classification are now changing. Okay, we are now studying these organisms at genetic and molecular level. We are taking into account evolutionary relationship. So that's why the classification system are changing. Okay, let's talk about kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera consists of bacteria. It includes bacteria. Bacteria are abundant organisms. They are cosmopolitan. They are present everywhere. Bacteria can live in extreme habitats such as hot springs, deserts, snow, and deep oceans where any other organisms cannot survive. Many of the, you can say, bacteria, they are parasitic. They live in or on the organisms as parasites. Now, bacteria can be divided into 4 groups based on their shape. Okay. So you should remember these 4 groups. These 4 groups are made or they are based on the shape of the bacteria. The bacteria can be spherical, example is coccus. They can be rod shaped, bacillus. They can be comma shaped, example is vibrio, or they can be spiral, example is spirillum. So you should remember the different shapes of the bacteria. These are spherical, then you have rod shaped, then you have spiral, and then you have comma shaped. Though the bacterial structure is very simple, they have a very complex behavior. They have very, you can say, extensive metabolic diversity. Again, this is very important. Underline this. This is very important for your NEET exam. They have extensive metabolic diversity. So this helps them to survive in various conditions, various environment, various habitats. So they can be autotrophic, means they can prepare their own food from inorganic substances. Remember this. So in photosynthesis, what happens? Carbon dioxide combines with water. So these are all inorganic substances. They combine together in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll to form glucose. Okay, or sugars. Within autotrophs, you have photosynthetic autotrophs and chemosynthetic autotrophs. The question has come from this. Okay, the question has come from this. What is photosynthetic autotrophs and chemosynthetic autotroph? Okay, like cyanobacteria, this is a phototrophic autotroph. It can photosynthesize. Okay, then chemosynthetic autotrophs, they are sulfur oxidizing bacteria. Example is sulfur oxidizing bacteria. So you should know the example also. Vast majority of bacteria are heterotrophs. That is, they obtain nutrients from the other organism. or they obtain nutrients from dead and decaying organic matter. So you can say they are parasitic. Okay, they are parasitic, or they can be decomposers also, which feed on this dead and decaying organic matter. Let's talk about archaebacteria. Archaebacteria, they are the primitive bacteria. Remember this. Okay, they live in extreme environment. They are known as extremophils. They can live in extreme environment like hot springs, salty areas, marshy areas. So you should remember these terms: halophytes, thermoacidophils, and methanogens. Methanogens, are in they have the ability to produce methane. So again, question has come from this line. Archaebacteria. Archaebacteria, as I've told you, they can survive in extreme environments. How they can survive in extreme environment? Because of the presence of, you can say, a special kind of cell wall. So they have different cell wall structure. Okay, archaebacteria have different cell wall structure. Usually the true bacteria, they consist of peptidoglycan in their cell wall. But in case of archaebacteria, the cell wall consists of pseudomurine instead of peptidoglycan. Okay, so you can again write this. The archaebacteria cell wall structure is different. They consist of pseudomurine, they consist of glycoproteins, and they consist of complex polysaccharides. Okay, so this is also very important. So this is how they survive in the extreme habitat, because of their different cell wall structure. Now methanogens, they have the ability to produce methane. They are present in the gut of the ruminant animals such as cow and buffaloes. They are also present in the gut of humans also. So they are also important part of the human flora. Okay. The human gut also consists of bacteria. Some of them are beneficial also. Out of that 10%, 10% are methanogens. Okay, out of the total bacteria present in the gut, 10% are methanogens. Methanogens have the ability to produce methane, which is a major component of the biogas. So these methanogens can produce methane from the animal dung. Let's talk about the eubacteria. Eubacteria, it is a true bacteria. Again, question has come from this line. Okay, they have a rigid cell wall, and they might consist of flagellum also. If they consist of flagellum, then they are motile. Now the cyanobacteria, which is also known as blue-green algae, have chlorophyll A similar to green plants and are photosynthetic autotrophs. Again, remember this. This line is also very important. Question can come from here. Cyanobacteria, they can be unicellular. Okay, they can be colonial or filamentous. They can be freshwater, marine, or terrestrial algae. Clear? So they are unicellular forms, colonial or filamentous forms. Some live in freshwater, some in marine, and there are terrestrial algae also. The colonies are surrounded by gelatinous sheath. Now the algae, they form the algal blooms. So these algal blooms, remember these algal blooms, okay, they consist of the cyanobacteria. So cyanobacteria form the algal blooms in the polluted water bodies. So what is algal bloom? This is the overgrowth or rapid multiplication of the algae in the water. Okay, why there is the overgrowth or rapid multiplication of the algae? Because of the presence of certain minerals and nutrients in the water, such as nitrogen and phosphorus. So when the water is rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, then there will be overgrowth of the algae. This is known as algal blooms. Again, remember, this algal blooms cause discoloration of the water, and now it leads to these algal blooms can be dangerous, because when the algae die, then organic matter gets accumulated in the water. Now for the decomposition of this organic matter, oxygen is required. Okay, so now oxygen is being used for the decomposition of the algae, okay, of decomposition of the organic matter. So this decreases the BOD. Okay, so you can say the BOD, okay, which is biological oxygen demand. Okay, or you can say less oxygen is available for the aquatic animals like fishes. So this can be dangerous for the aquatic life. Clear? Because oxygen is getting utilized by the decomposition. It is used in the decomposition of the algae. Clear? So algal blooms will cause increase in the BOD. Increase in the BOD for the aquatic animals. Increase in the BOD means increase in the biological oxygen demand. Remember this, increase in the BOD means there is an increased demand for oxygen by the aquatic animals, because oxygen being utilized by the, or it is being utilized for the decomposition of the organic matter. Now, some of these organisms can fix atmospheric nitrogen in specialized cells called heterocyst. Again, you can get a question from here. Okay, this is heterocyst. Heterocysts are specialized cells which are involved in the fixation of atmospheric nitrogen. Example is nostoc and anabina. Question has come from here. Here you can see this is a heterocyst present in the filamentous blue-green algae, which is nostoc. So you should remember the example also in nostoc. Nostoc is blue-green algae and they consist of a specialized cells known as heterocyst. Talk about chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria. They oxidize various inorganic substances such as nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia and use the release energy for their ATP production. Now, what is the importance of chemosynthetic bacteria? Remember this. They play a great role in mineral cycling or nutrient cycling, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, and sulfur. So this you should remember the advantage or the importance of chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria. Then let's talk about the heterotrophic bacteria now. We were talking about the autotrophic bacteria. Let's talk about the heterotrophic bacteria now. They are abundant in nature. These heterotrophic bacteria, they are decomposers. Okay, this is very important. They are decomposers. They can decompose the organic matter. They are also involved in the production of the curd from the milk. Certain bacteria like lactic acid bacteria known as lactobacillus, they can form curd from the milk. Some can produce antibiotics such as streptomycin is obtained from streptococcus. Then they can fix nitrogen in the leguminous root also, in leguminous plants. Some are pathogens and they can cause diseases in humans, in crops, means in plants, in animals as well as the pets. Okay, now they cause disease like cholera, typhoid, tetanus, and citrus canker. And how the bacteria reproduce? So they reproduce by asexual reproduction, which is known as fission, basically binary fission. Where one cell divides into two, this is known as the binary fission. This is one parent cell divided into two daughter cells. Bacteria reproduce primarily by fission. This is the bacteria which is dividing. So bacteria consist of the genetic material which is DNA here. So they don't have a true nucleus. So just DNA is just lying here in this region. This is the region is known as the nucleoid. And the bacteria consists of cell wall and the cell membrane. So one bacteria is dividing into two bacteria. What happens under unfavorable conditions? The bacteria form spores. So this is a kind of survival strategy. These spores can survive the adverse condition. And whenever favorable conditions return, these spores can again germinate and form the, you can say, new organism. Now there is, again remember this, bacteria, they reproduce by a sort of sexual reproduction. So this is not true sexual reproduction. This is a sort of sexual reproduction, such as conjugation. Okay, so you can write conjugation is a sort of sexual reproduction. It is not true sexual reproduction. In conjugation, what happens? This one bacteria, it will form a sex pilus through which the two bacteria are connected. and the bacteria can transfer its DNA. Okay, so DNA from one bacteria is getting transferred to another bacteria. Okay. Now let's talk about mycoplasma. Mycoplasma, they lack the cell wall. Because they lack the cell wall, they are the smallest living organisms and they can survive without oxygen. So these are the features of the mycoplasma. Again, remember this question have already come from here, from mycoplasma. And mycoplasma are also pathogenic in animals and plants, means they can cause disease in animals and plants. So what is a pathogen? Organism which cause diseases. This is known as a pathogen. Let's talk about kingdom Protista now. So in kingdom Protista, single cell eukaryotes are placed here. Single cell eukaryotes means unicellular eukaryotes. Okay, clear? Now this kingdom Protista, okay, they don't have any boundaries of this kingdom. Boundaries of this kingdom are not defined because kingdom Protista includes animals which are plant like. It includes organisms which are plant like, animal like, and fungus like. Okay, clear? So in kingdom Protista, what all are included? Chrysophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds, and protozoans. These are all included under kingdom Protista. Again, question have come from this line here. Member of the Protista, they are aquatic. Now they form a link with other dealing with the plants, animals, and fungi. Again, this is very important. Question can come from this line. They form a link with other groups like plants, animals, and fungi, because the members of the Protista or Protist, they are plant like also, they are animal like also, and they are fungi like also. That's why they are forming a link. Now they are eukaryotes, so they will consist of a true nucleus and membrane bound organelle. They may have flagella or cilia also, which helps in the locomotion. Protists reproduce asexually and sexually by a process involving cell fusion and the zygote formation. Okay, again you should remember this. Let's talk about the chrysophytes here. Chrysophytes, these are very important. These include diatoms and golden algae, also known as the desmids. Now they are found in freshwater as well as marine environment as well. They are microscopic and float passively in the water current, means they are planktons. Okay, like phytoplanktons. Phytoplankton, they are the producers in the aquatic ecosystem. So these diatoms, they are microscopic and they just float in the water. So they are like planktons. They are photosynthetic, remember this. Clear? So photosynthesis is done by the plants. So they have plant-like features, you can see here. These diatoms, they have plant-like features. They are photosynthetic. Okay. Now what is the unique feature of diatoms? So the cell wall is unique in case of diatoms. Cell wall consists of silica and the cell wall is unique. And this unique cell wall is known as frustule. Remember this. The unique cell wall is known as fistule. Fistule have two layers. Okay, epitheca and the hypotheca. Epitheca is the upper half, hypotheca is the lower half. Okay, and these two halves, they overlap with each other and they fit together like a soap box. Okay, they have silica in their cell walls. Now when the diatom they die, then the silica is deposited. So this silica has deposited over billions of years. Okay, and this has formed the diatomaceous earth. So this diatomaceous earth being gritty, this is used in polishing and filtration of oil as well as syrups. Again, this is very important. Question can come from here as well. Question come from diatomaceous earth or use of the diatomaceous earth. So these are the diatoms. They have box-like shell that overlap like a soap box. So these are the, you can see, two halves here which overlap with each other, and they fit in like a soap box. Again, question has come from this line. Diatoms, they are the chief producers in the ocean. Or they can ask you, diatoms, what are the chief producers in the aquatic ecosystem? Okay, such as ocean. They are the diatoms. Okay, they are the chief producers. They can photosynthesize. That's why they are known as the producers. They can convert light energy into the food or organic matter. Let's talk about the dinoflagellates. These organisms are mostly marine and photosynthetic. Again, they are photosynthetic, you can see. This is a plant-like feature. They have different kind of pigments. And due to the presence of different kind of pigments, they appear yellow, green, brown, blue, or red. Now, this is very important for dinoflagellate. This is a characteristic feature of dinoflagellate. Again, question can come from here. Okay, the cell wall has stiff cellulose plates. Cellulose plates, obviously, they are made up of cellulose. And the cellulose plate provide rigidity and support to the cell wall. You can see this is the image showing you dinoflagellate. These are the flagella of the dinoflagellate. One flagella is, you can see here, they have two flagella. One flagella is longitudinally placed, means lengthwise placed. Another one is transversely placed. Now there is one red dinoflagellate known as goniologs. So this is also very important. Goniologs, why it is not known as red dinoflagellate? Because goniologs releases a red color toxin in the sea, and because of this red toxin, the sea becomes red in color, and this is known as red tides. So point here to note is that this is also a kind of algal bloom. Red tide is also a kind of, you can write, it is a kind of algal bloom because there is a rapid multiplication of the goniologs, which is a dinoflagellate. Okay. So there is rapid multiplication of the goniologs and it releases a toxin. And this toxin can harm the aquatic life as well. So they can harm fishes also. Let's talk about euglenoids. So euglenoids, this is very important. Euglenoid is considered as a connecting, you can say, connecting link between animals and the plants. So euglena, first of all, they, you can say, majority of them are freshwater organism and they are found in stagnant water. Remember this, they are found in stagnant water. Now, instead of a cell wall, they have protein-rich layer called pellicle, which makes their body flexible. So this is an animal-like feature. So euglena, I have told you, euglenoids, they have features of both plants and animals. So plants, they have usually cell wall. But euglenoids, they don't have a cell wall. Instead of cell wall, they have a protein-rich layer known as pellicle, which makes their body flexible. So this is animal-like feature here. Now they have two flagella, one is short, one is long. Okay. Now this is also very interesting. Question can come from here. Euglena or euglenoids, they are photosynthetic in the presence of the sunlight. But when there is no sunlight, they can behave like heterotrophs. Okay, by predating on other small animals. So you can see they are photosynthetic, means they have plant-like characteristic. And they can behave as heterotrophic organisms also, which is an animal-like feature. So what are animal-like features? They can become heterotrophs in the absence of the light. This is animal-like feature. And the presence of pellicle, this is also animal-like feature. And absence of the cell wall. Okay. Plant-like feature is that they are photosynthetic. They are autotrophs. Clear? So now again, this is another plant-like feature. The pigments of the euglenoids are identical to those present in the higher plants. Example is euglena. So what does this mean? So this means that the plants and animals, they have a common ancestor. You can again write this, is very important. So euglenoids, what do they show you? These euglenoids show you that as they have both animal and plant like features, euglena or euglenoids, example is euglena. This shows that there was a common ancestor for both plants as well as the animals. Clear? It's very important. There was a common ancestor of plants and animals. So this is the information given by this euglenoids. So this is the euglena. It have two flagella, one long and one short. Euglena also have an eye spot here, and this eye spot, okay, this eye spot helps in the direction of the light, which is again an animal feature. Let's talk about the slime molds. Slime molds are a saprophytic protist. So I've already told you, kingdom Protista or protist, they are plant-like, animal-like, and they are fungus-like also. So slime molds, they are fungus-like. Okay, they are fungi-like. Fungi, they are also saprophytic. Slime molds, they are also saprophytic. Means they feed on dead and decaying organic matter. So their body moves along decaying twigs and leaves, which are the organic matter, engulfing the organic matter. Now, under suitable conditions, they form the plasmodium. Remember, this question can come from here. Under suitable conditions, they form aggregates where the cell they fuse with each other and they form the plasmodium. And the plasmodium can grow and it can spread over several feet. Then, under unfavorable conditions, the plasmodium differentiate and forms the fruiting bodies bearing the spores. The spores are produced in the unfavorable conditions. So this is a kind of survival strategy because the spores can survive in adverse conditions for a very long duration. And when the conditions are favorable, the spores can again resume growth. And it can reproduce and form the entire organism. The spores have true walls. The spores are extremely resistant and can survive for many years under adverse conditions. Remember, the spores are dispersed by air currents. So all these lines that I have underlined, these are very important. So you should remember these facts, these information. So this is an image showing you the slime mold. This is the plasmodium. And let's talk about the protozoans. So there are 4 kinds of protozoans, and these protozoans, they are heterotrophs. These protozoans, they are animal-like. Slime molds, they were fungus-like. So you can write this. Protozoans, they are animal-like. Slime molds, they were fungus-like. Diatoms, they were plant-like. Okay? Clear? So you should know this. So protozoans, they are also heterotrophs. Animals, they are also heterotrophs. So you can see they have animal-like features. And these protozoans, they live as predators or the parasites. They are believed to be primitive relatives of the animals. So protozoans, they are animal-like. They have animal-like features. There are 4 major groups of protozoans. First is amoeboid protozoans. Example is amoeba. So they live in freshwater, seawater, or moist soil. And they move and they capture the prey by putting out pseudopodia, which are known as false feet. So what these bacteria do, they can engulf the prey or the food with the help of pseudopodia. So the pseudopodia helps in the movement also, and they help in the capturing of the food. Again, you should know this question can come from here. What is the role of pseudopodia? Clear? Then marine forms have silica shells on their surface. Example is ant amoeba histolytica. Ant amoeba histolytica cause a disease known as amoebic dysentery, in which you will get watery stools. Next one is flagellated protozoans. So as the name suggests, they will have flagella. Flagella helps in the locomotion. They are free living or they are parasitic. So example is trypanosoma. This trypanosoma causes sleeping sickness disease. Okay. Now let's talk about ciliated protozoan. Example is obviously paramecium. So they have thousands of silica are present on their body, on this you can say cell surface. Now they have a cavity which is known as gullet that opens to the outside of the cell surface. Now through this gullet, the water which consists of the food, this will enter through the gullet. Now what is the role of cilia here? So cilia helps in the locomotion also, it helps in the feeding of the paramecium also. Clear? Now the coordinated movement of the rows of the cilia causes the water laden with the food, water along with the food, to be steered into the gullet. So as the cilia moves, then the water which consists of the food, this enters into the cavity which is known as gullet. This enters into the gullet. Okay, so it helps in the feeding also, because along with water, food is also entering. Example is paramecium. You can see there are thousands of cilia which you can see here. These are all cilia. These are thousands of cilia. The next one are the sporozoans. So this include diverse organisms that have an infectious spore-like stage in their life cycle. So that's why the name sporozoan. They have infectious spore-like stage in their life cycle. So their life cycle is quite complex. Example of a sporozoan is Plasmodium. Okay, Plasmodium is known as a malarial parasite, means it causes malaria. Now you should remember the species of Plasmodium. There is one species, Plasmodium vivax, then there is Plasmodium malaria, and there is Plasmodium falciparum. Now Plasmodium causes malaria. Now why the life cycle is quite complex? Because it requires two hosts to complete its life cycle. One of the hosts is the human host, and the other host is the female Anopheles mosquito. Okay, so there are two hosts. Clear? And female Anopheles mosquito is also a vector. So vector, what is a vector? So vector transmits this pathogen from one organism to another organism. So female Anopheles mosquito is a vector as well as a host, and there are two hosts. One is the human host, another one is the female Anopheles mosquito. Now Plasmodium, it enters into the body of the human when this you can say mosquito bites the human being. Okay, so it transfers this Plasmodium into the human body. So this Plasmodium has different stages. The infectious stage is known as sporozoite. Okay, again you should remember the infectious stage, this is known as sporozoite. So the parasite, this pathogen or this malarial parasite, which is Plasmodium, this enters into the human body in the form of sporozoite. Sporozoite is the infectious stage. Okay, then they will enter into the liver. Okay, they will multiply in the liver cells. Then they will multiply in the RBCs. Then there are different stages. Okay, first is a sporozoite, then there will be merozoites. Okay, then schizont will be formed, then again merocyte will be formed. Then gametocytes are formed. Gametocyte, they are the sexual stage. Okay, so that's why the life cycle of the Plasmodium is very complex. These gametocytes, these are the sexual stage. So one is female gametocyte, another one is male gametocyte. Now when the insect again bites this humans, which consist of gametocytes, these gametocytes get transferred into the female Anopheles mosquito. Then fertilization takes place in the gut of the you can say this insect, and after fertilization these sporozoites are formed, And sporozoite, they are stored in the salivary glands of this female Anopheles mosquito. And whenever the female Anopheles mosquito will bite the healthy person, then it will transfer these sporozoites into that person. Clear? So this is the life cycle of the plasmodium, which causes malaria. So you should know about these four categories of the protozoans, four types of protozoans. So protista, they are very interesting. They consist of plant-like organism also, animal-like organism also, and fungi-like organism also. That's why they don't have any boundaries. So the protist, they don't have any particular boundaries. They don't have any particular or unique features. So the protist have animal like the euglena. Euglena has characteristic of both animals and plants. Protozoans, they have animal-like features. They are heterotrophic. Animals are also heterotrophic. Diatoms, they are plant-like. They are photosynthetic. Okay, euglena, they are also photosynthetic, but they can be heterotrophic also. They can follow heterotrophic mode of nutrition also in the absence of the light. Okay, so you should remember this about kingdom protista. It is the link. Okay, that's why there was a line. It links the other groups also, like Plantae, Animalia, and fungus. Okay, so in this session, we talked about kingdom Monera and kingdom Protista. So this session, as I've told you, was based on the NEET exam. So I have told you from which topics the questions have come and from which topics the question can come in the NEET exam. Okay, so this was the end of this session. I hope the session was quite knowledgeable for you. Thank you very much for listening.